I think about, man, I have to perform songs every single night or every other night.
Everyone knows Bruno Mars, the performer, but few know the real Bruno, the kid who had already performed 1,000 shows before he was 10, the teenager who once slept in abandoned zoos, and the man who later lost everything to gambling. At 39, he decided to finally tell the whole story, not just about the money he owed or Jessica walking away, but about the childhood trauma that fueled his rise, the addiction that nearly destroyed his career, and the dark family secret he had carried for decades. Bruno's journey began at just 4 years old, when most kids were learning to read, but he was already performing 2 shows a night, 5 nights a week, as part of his family's musical act in Waikiki. Nicknamed Little Elvis for his tiny glittered jumpsuit and uncanny impersonation of Presley, he stunned audiences with his natural showmanship. At only 5, he stole the spotlight at the 1990 Aloha Bowl halftime show in front of 40,000 people, appeared on the Arsenio Hall show at 6, and even landed a small role in Honeymoon in Vegas in 1992, earning $600 for a single day's work, which he later joked was his first Vegas residency. By the time he was 10, he had performed nearly 1,000 shows, building a foundation that years later made rehearsing for the Super Bowl halftime show feel like recess. But when his parents divorced at 12, the family act fell apart, and so did stability. Bruno, his father, and brother found themselves sleeping in a yellow '93 Cadillac, on rooftops in Waikiki, and even in an abandoned bird zoo where peacocks screamed through the night. With no bathroom, they snuck into hotel pools just to shower, and dinner was often nothing more than Spam Musubi from 7-Eleven. For 5 months they lived without electricity, and Bruno practiced guitar by moonlight since they couldn't afford amps. At school, classmates mocked his thrift store clothes, but he never quit chasing music. He earned $75 a night impersonating Michael Jackson, saving for demo tapes and bus fare. By 2003, music labels heard his demos and pushed him to become the next Ricky Martin, insisting he sing in Spanish despite not writing in the language. Bruno refused, unwilling to be molded into the industry's idea of a Latin artist. Instead, he embraced a name from childhood, Bruno, after wrestler Bruno Sammartino, and added Mars, inspired by a girl who once told him he was so confident he must be from another planet. At 18, he left Hawaii for Los Angeles with just $600, 3 demo CDs, and Bruno Mars written on his luggage tag. That first year, he bounced between 4 different places, from a $40 a night Sunset Motel to a cramped Koreatown studio shared with 6 other guys. To survive, he even lied his way into a DJ job on Van Nuys Boulevard despite never having touched DJ equipment. He got fired after just 2 nights, but the $75 he made was enough to keep his phone from being shut off. That summer, there were weeks when he survived on nothing but 99-cent tacos from Jack in the Box. In February 2004, Motown offered him a deal, a contract so thin it was only 3 pages long. Bruno later joked he'd seen breakfast menus thicker than that. The label didn't really know what to do with him. They wanted a Latin pop singer, not the artist he envisioned himself to be. 9 months later, they dropped him without releasing a single song. It was humiliating, especially since he had already told his family back home that he had been signed. But in the long run, that failure turned out to be a blessing. Around that same time, another artist dropped by Motown was Philip Lawrence, and the two quickly became friends. They promised each other they would make music that record labels couldn't ignore. By 2006, Bruno and Philip were broke but determined, writing songs in the back of Philip's beat-up '99 Toyota Corolla parked outside a small Hollywood studio owned by Ari Levine. Ari had the gear, and Bruno and Philip had the ideas, often paying him with 7-Eleven burritos. Whenever a chord or beat clicked, they'd shout, "That's a SME," which eventually inspired their name, the Smeezingtons. They worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, studying over 1,000 hit songs before even releasing one of their own. Bruno's sister, Jamie, eventually slipped one of his demos to Mike Lynn, an executive working with Dr. Dre. At first, Mike almost tossed it, dismissing Bruno's voice as sounding chipmunk-like, but 43 seconds in, a high note stopped him cold. He flew Bruno out to record One Studios. No deal came of it, but just being noticed gave Bruno hope. To scrape by, they sold a song called Los a Menudo for $20,000, just enough to keep a roof over their heads. Their true break arrived when they wrote the chorus for Flo Rida's Right Round, which hit number 1 and broke a digital sales record with 636,000 downloads in its first week. Next came B.O.B.S. Nothing on You, another smash hit. By the time Bruno released Just the Way You Are in 2010, songs he had co-written had already sold more than 15 million downloads for other artists. His solo career, however, started quietly with a Blink and You'll Miss It EP, It's Better If You Don't Understand, released on May 11th, 2010. Only 4 songs long and just 13 minutes in total, it went largely unnoticed, selling just 27,000 copies in the US by the end of 2011. But hidden in that small project were the seeds of something greater. 5 months later, Doo-Wops and Hooligans dropped in October 2010 and exploded. Made on a modest $70,000 budget with no borrowed samples, the album went 7x platinum in the US and surpassed 15 million global sales by 2020. In the UK, it remained on the official albums chart for 400 weeks, nearly 8 years, outlasting even Abbey Road and Thriller. Its lead single, Just the Way You Are, entered the Billboard Hot 100 on August 7, 2010, hit number 1 within 8 weeks, stayed on the chart for 48 weeks, and sold 6.7 million copies in the US alone, going 13x platinum. Just the Way You Are's massive success was only the beginning. Then came Grenade, which sold 559,000 downloads in a single week, at the time, the 8th biggest weekly total in music history. It didn't just top the US charts. It went number 1 in 15 countries and, between January and March 2011, hit number 1 on Billboard 3 separate times, a feat achieved by only 5 other songs in history. By March 2011, Bruno had 2 songs each certified over 5 million in US sales, a milestone previously reached only by Lady Gaga. The industry took notice. At just 25, Bruno earned 7 Grammy nominations in his rookie year, including Album and Record of the Year. He didn't win the biggest categories, but he did walk away with Best Male Pop Vocal Performance for Just the Way You Are, becoming the youngest man to win that award since Stevie Wonder in 1974. Soon after, Billboard crowned him the top Hot 100 Artist of the Year, and the IFPI named him the world's best-selling global artist of 2011, even edging out Adele's late-year surge. But Bruno wasn't slowing down. In October 2012, he released Locked Out of Heaven. It debuted modestly at number 34 but climbed steadily, hitting number 1 within 11 weeks and staying there for 6 straight weeks, from December 22, 2012 through January 26, 2013. That made him the first solo male artist since Bobby Vinton in 1964 to score 4 Hot 100 number 1s in his first 2 years. Even Michael Jackson hadn't achieved that. Sales matched the momentum. The track hit 1 million US downloads in just 10 weeks, eventually going 10x platinum, with Spotify streams later soaring past 1.8 billion. Critics were caught off guard. Rolling Stone called it the police revival nobody ordered but everyone needed, praising its reggae rock edge for cutting through the EDM monotony dominating pop radio. The success set the tone for Unorthodox Jukebox. Though the label initially wanted a safe, dance-heavy album, Bruno and his team secretly stretched the vision, experimenting across 9 genres, from the disco shimmer of Treasure to the raw rock intensity of Gorilla and the reggae groove of Show Me. The label panicked, warning that radio wouldn't embrace such chaos. Bruno stood firm, even giving up 4% of his future royalties to fund live horns and vintage gear. The gamble paid off. Within a year, the album sold 6 million copies worldwide. Critics were stunned. Spin magazine said it felt like flipping through a jukebox at 3 a.m., chaotic but magnetic. Bruno's genre-blending blueprint would later inspire artists like Dua Lipa and Harry Styles. The 2014 Grammy cemented its legacy when Unorthodox Jukebox won Best Pop Vocal Album alongside 2 other awards. Engineers revealed that each track used more than 120 individual audio layers, more than even Daft Punk's Random Access Memories. That same night, Bruno's electrifying performance of Gorilla sparked controversy when a 0.6-second shot of him thumping his chest, meant to mimic a gorilla, drew an FCC complaint. No fine was issued for the controversial gorilla performance, but it did earn Bruno a spot in the 2015 Guinness World Records as the shortest televised act ever to trigger an obscenity review. After the Grammys, Unorthodox Jukebox sales spiked, shooting up 171% on the Billboard 200, one of the biggest Grammy Week boosts since Alanis Morissette in the 90s. Then came Uptown Funk, born in a jam session on May 1st, 2014, inside a makeshift studio. The first version was captured on a voice memo that Mark Ronson still keeps starred in his inbox. The final track took 11 writers, got tangled in 5 lawsuits, and finally dropped on November 10, 2014. It went straight to number 1 and held the spot for 14 consecutive weeks, from January 17 to April 18, 2015, the longest run of the decade until Old Town Road. At its peak, it sold 300,000 downloads a week and hit 15 million daily streams worldwide. In the UK, it sold 1 million copies in just 10 weeks, becoming the fastest-selling jazz-influenced single since I Feel Good in 1965. The obsession was real. Delta Airlines reported a 37% spike in first-class drink orders when it became their boarding song, with one staffer dubbing it Uptown Drunk, while the BBC even used its tempo to teach CPR. But Bruno's next chapter almost didn't happen. When he handed in 24K Magic in 2016, the label wasn't impressed. The album only had 9 tracks and ran for 33 minutes, shorter than some EPs, but Bruno was adamant. He wanted it to feel like a 1990s party mixtape with no skips. His gamble paid off. At the 2018 Grammys, the album swept, winning Album, Record, and Song of the Year, becoming only the second R&B album of the century to achieve that hat trick. He took home 6 awards that night, sparking an immediate 130% spike in streams of That's What I Like, which went on to be certified 7X Platinum. By April 2018, 24K Magic had sold more than 5 million copies worldwide, despite never reaching number 1 on the Billboard 200. The world tour that followed was just as explosive, beginning on March 28, 2017, in Antwerp, and ending on December 30, 2018, in Honolulu. Spanning 215 shows across 6 continents, it sold 3.5 million tickets and grossed $367.7 million, breaking Beyoncé's Auckland record by selling 48,483 tickets, over 4,000 more than her 2016 stop, and securing a place among the top 10 highest-grossing tours of all time, surpassing U2's original Joshua Tree tour and Lady Gaga's Monster Ball. Every detail of 24K Magic was deliberate. The Talkbox intro, the title track, nodded to Zapp and Rogers' Computer Love, 1987. The silky synths of Versace on the floor echoed Babyface 1994 classics, and the Finesse remix with Cardi B was mixed through a 25-year-old console to nail that 90s sound. Even the 9-track count was intentional. Bruno said his favorite cassette, Bobby Brown's Don't Be Cruel, had 9 songs beside. Critics rave, calling it pop's most valuable history lesson and crediting him with bringing funk back to the mainstream. And yet, Bruno still had more surprises. In September 2018, he recorded the hook for Gucci Mane's Wake Up in the Sky in under 30 minutes. Released on September 14th, the song peaked at number 11 but proved timeless, going 6X Platinum and racking up 1.4 billion Spotify streams by July 2025, outperforming many number ones. Then, late one night at Dolby Live in Las Vegas, Bruno stepped into the spotlight at 11:47 p.m., dressed in a gold tuxedo. The room fell silent. "Silk Sonic is real," he announced, before unveiling Leave the Door Open at exactly 12:01 a.m. The ballad soared to number 4 immediately, then climbed to number 1 within 4 weeks, holding the top spot for 2 months and surpassing 2.3 billion Spotify streams by mid-2022. The project, recorded entirely analog and released as an evening with Silk Sonic in November 2021, was a masterclass in retro perfection. Its vinyl debut sold 104,000 copies in its first week, the biggest R&B vinyl debut in more than 30 years. At the 2022 Grammys, Bruno and Anderson .Paak, dressed in white tuxedos, performed alongside 18 string players and Bootsy Collins himself, walking away with Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best R&B Performance. The album's tour pulled in nearly $145 million from just 37 shows, about $4 million a night, with some tickets reselling for $6,500. But Bruno wasn't done. On August 16, 2024, he teased fans with a cryptic message, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, bring tissues. Minutes later, Lady Gaga dropped Die with a Smile. Shot on 16mm black and white film with Morse code flashes spelling One Last Dance, the video became a cultural event. The song shattered records, debuting with 27.4 million streams in one day, more than Adele's Easy on Me, and spent 18 weeks at number 1, going multi. Platinum in 32 countries. At the 2025 Grammys, Bruno and Gaga's gospel-backed performance brought the house down, highlighted by Bruno's 11-second sustained note that fans dubbed the human saxophone. Wildly, the final vocal was recorded in one take at 4:12 a.m., right after Bruno smashed a tequila bottle in the studio. Its shattering can still be heard at the 3:18 mark. Then came his groundbreaking duet with Rosé of Blackpink. She teased it on TikTok with a 9-second guitar riff that pulled 42 million views in just 12 hours. When the full song dropped, it debuted at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, setting the record for the biggest K-pop female duet debut in history. The neon-soaked video crossed 100 million YouTube views in just 19 hours, smashing yet another record. 9 months later, during Blackpink's show at Sophie Stadium, the lights cut out and Bruno appeared. The stadium erupted, louder than a jet engine, as he and Rosé performed AP together while 1.2 tons of confetti rained down. That night, Spotify reported a 300% streaming surge, vaulting the track back up the charts nearly a year after release. Fans had long speculated what AP stood for, and Bruno finally revealed it meant After Party Tango, inspired by Wild Night in Buenos Aires in 2019 when he and Rosé danced until sunrise. The video of that moment, he joked, lives on his phone, locked, except Rihanna might know how to open it. By August 2025, the track had surpassed 3 billion streams and boosted Blackpink's tour merch sales by $48 million. Bruno's reach across genres seemed limitless. But behind the lights, records, and headlines, a more personal story was beginning to unfold. Back in spring 2011, long before the Grammys and world tours, Bruno met Jessica Cabon at a hotel restaurant in New York. She had just come from a modeling audition, and he had just finished the show. They locked eyes for 40 minutes before he finally walked over, and the two talked until 2 a.m., long after the lights were off and the chairs were stacked. In less than a year, Jessica left everything and moved across the country to be with Bruno. At first, she slept on an air mattress while he toured the world, but slowly they built a life together. By 2014, they had a home in Studio City and a dog named Geronimo. Bruno rarely spoke about her, once calling her my rock in an interview and quickly moving on. Even the heartbreaking When I Was Your Man, which many believed was inspired by a rough patch in their relationship, he only described as bleeding on tape. Jessica herself stayed mostly private, appearing on only 3 red carpets in 13 years before vanishing from the spotlight. Then, in late 2024, fans noticed something strange. Her anniversary post had disappeared. Days later, Bruno flew to Tokyo alone, still wearing the gold necklace she had given him, but with her initials turned backward. In January 2025, when a fan asked Jessica on Instagram if they had split, she replied, "I will always celebrate and be happy for all of his continued achievements." Just 15 words, enough to set the internet on fire. Observers pointed out that she had spent Christmas with her parents in San Juan, while he rang in the New Year performing in Vegas, marking their first December apart in over a decade. Rumors spread quickly. Some claimed they were living separate lives, others that he tried to fix things but chose to extend his Vegas shows instead. Still, no breakup was ever confirmed. She continued to follow him on Instagram. He still liked her fashion posts. They co-owned their house, and some even swore they saw her backstage at one of his shows in May, though no photos surfaced. Then, on March 15, 2024, the story took another turn when News Nation made a wild claim, without naming sources, that Bruno Mars owed MGM Resort around $50 million in gambling debt, supposedly working it off through his Park MGM residency shows. Within hours, the internet exploded. Gossip blogs repeated the number without hesitation. Reddit threads speculated that MGM owned him, and talk shows fueled the fire. Shannon Sharpe even told his audience he'd heard Bruno once lost $17 million in a single night at blackjack. The image was too perfect. A global superstar singing about gold and riches, secretly trapped by casino debt. Viral headlines wrote themselves. In just 2 days, #BrunoBroke was everywhere, and Bruno Mars' $50 million debt racked up over 4 million Google results, all traced back to one anonymous claim. MGM Resorts shut it down fast. Instead of vague PR, they issued a blunt denial to Forbes and Billboard. Bruno didn't owe them a cent. Their exact words, no debt. They praised him as one of the world's greatest performers and emphasized their relationship was built on mutual respect. The response wasn't just about protecting Bruno. It was about protecting investors. If the public believed their headliner was drowning in debt, Wall Street could panic. Some even whispered MGM planted the story to sell more tickets. But the official denial was strong enough that major outlets like Variety echoed it, and MGM's stock price didn't budge. Bruno, for his part, didn't issue a dull statement. He turned the scandal into a joke. At his April 12, 2024 Park MGM show, he looked dead serious at the crowd and said, "Ever since they said I'm on a hook for 50 mil, my phone been dry. Where my friends when I'm up." The crowd roared, and the clip hit 6.8 million views on TikTok in a day. On January 28, 2025, Spotify announced he had reached 150 million monthly listeners. Bruno reposted it with a caption, "Keep streaming. I'll be out of debt in no time." 2 weeks later, when he appeared on stage with Blackpink's Rosé at Sophie Stadium, his opening line was, "Almost out of debt." That quip alone pulled 32 million views on Instagram in 3 days. Each joke chipped away at the scandal sting and flipped it into free publicity. Still, the rumor persisted because the math almost made sense. Gambling experts explained that in Vegas, high rollers often bet $50,000 a hand, lose at 1,000 times over a few years, and $50 million adds up fast. Bruno himself had admitted he gambled young, once losing everything in a poker game. That history made the story believable, especially when stacked against his massive income, reportedly $1.5 million per show, around $90 million a year. Fans easily imagined him as a modern-day Sinatra, winning and losing fortunes under Vegas neon.